Hello, worldwide. Man. It should say so down there. And it's time for the 420 special. One that actually takes place on 420.
That isn't even fucking pot. That was from a vape, you fucking poser, bitch. Of course you're from Texas, bitch.
Well, yeah. I was just trying to get in the spirit of things.
By chooching on Johnny Five's tallywhacker?
Never mind. The point is that if you're going to do a 420 special on 420, you've got to do it right. And to that end, this week's review is Cheech Chong's Up in Smoke, a classic 1978 comedy and the stoner flick. Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong were a comedy duo since the late 60s, where, Cheech fled to Canada to avoid being drafted in the Vietnam War, but being a comedy duo in the 70s pretty much meant doing stoner comedy, and their success eventually culminated in a film career starting out with Up in Smoke in 1978. Taking some of the material they had come up with and expanding on it, Up in Smoke has Cheech Marin playing the street-smart Padre de Parcas, and Tommy Chong depicts the more sheltered drug savant Anthony Stoner. At least, that's what I think is going on. Being based on comedy routines, things don't always seem to, logically connect. It's also not horror, or science fiction, or action. Fantasy? Well, let's call it fantasy. So, anyway, let's take a look at Cheech Chong's Up in Smoke and do the unthinkable! Try to piece together the plot. The movie opens to Cheech waking in a haze. It's not really specified if this is due to drug use or sleep deprivation, but we can assume the latter as he evidently has at least 3 kids' antics to wake up to as he struggles to do the morning routine. But when you think about it, if he's got to wash those clothes anyway, this might just be an admirable display of water conservation. I mean, he is in California. Suddenly we jump over to introduce Tommy Chong in his very different situation. He's decked out in your stereotypical hippie garb, but actually belongs to a very well-off family, and his father, Arnold Stoner, played by Strother Martin, chastises him for being such a failure at life.
When, boy? When? Are you gonna get your act together?
Which is a very weird way to introduce the character when you take into account that absolutely nothing past this scene even remotely hints that Anthony ever had money. He's a druggie. That's pretty much it for this movie. The last thing we see of this place is Anthony running away from home, taking his Rolls-Royce grill strapped to a Volkswagen Bug, and hitting the road. For about 40 seconds before we find out that despite having all that money, his Beetle is surprisingly unreliable. Don't worry though, Pedro just so happens to be heading out to the street and seems very interested in helping people out.
You girls need a ride?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
I'm going that way.
No.
I guess it must have taken a while before Bang Bros got it down. Either that or women just really like it when you drive up to them in a windowless van and stick a camera in their face. Pedro, however, likes titties. One illegal U-turn later, and he picks up the hitchhiking woman, played by Tommy Chong.
Hey, you ain't a chick!
Yeah, I know, but listen, that's the only way I can get anybody to stop, man.
Damn it! Well, I hope you give good head. You know the code, ask ass or grass. Actually, Pedro forgets about his desire for poontang and just gives Anthony a ride. Starts off well enough, fleeing from the police because felonies are fun. With that in mind, they decide to get high right then and there, and Anthony has one hell of a joint to pass around.
God damn, looks like a quarter pounder, man. Led Zeppelin.
Hey, be careful with that shit, man.
However, the marijuana held within is far more potent than anything the 70s had to offer. So probably about mid to late 90s potency or so. The Super Doobie is a means for Anthony and Pedro to become fast friends, though, quickly filling the car with smoke as they pass it back and forth, even after Chong reveals that they're actually smoking weed that his pet dog ate, which he had to wait for him to shit out before he got back.
I think it's even better than before, you know?
I wonder what Great Dane tastes like, man.
Tastes like shit or good shit? How much shit can I do with this shit? If the shit they're smoking is actually shit and they don't even give a shit, that's some serious shit! Don't worry about them getting into an accident over this, though. They've already safely parked the car. However, the insane potency of this batch of weed is enough to get Pedro to start freaking out, and with that in mind, Anthony digs through his stash of drugs to find something to calm his new friend's nerves.
What is that, man?
Mistaken, man. Hey, don't take those, man.
But like most street doctors, Anthony's always mixing up his antacids with his acids.
You just ate the most acid I've ever seen anybody eat in my life.
I guess so. The 8 folks who accidentally took a few hundred hits of LSD all at once didn't eat it. They snorted it. They thought it was cocaine. Funny thing, if my sources are correct, they actually survived too. Pedro here, though, is terrified that the few tabs he just ate will somehow kill him, because he's never taken acid before now, which shows as just 1 minute later suddenly he starts laughing at everything, up to and including the police that have come to assess the situation.
Keep on knocking, but you can't come in.
Hey, man, don't man. The cops, man.
Anthony, though, realizes the trouble they're in thanks to Pedro eating all of those drugs, so he must dispose of the rest of the drugs by eating them.
Hey, what's your name, man? The dude wants to know your name, man. His name is Ralph, man.
Jeez, these guys have incredibly fast metabolic systems. It's like watching them take a shot and then be very careful about putting the glass down because they've already got a hangover. Point is, they get arrested and some music kicks in. Yeah, I haven't talked much about the music thus far, as it generally doesn't affect the plot in any way, but you've got a few classics here and there, plus some original works with Cheech providing vocals, that even occasionally have something to do with what's going on screen.
Listen to me, Dirk, I was brave. I never do nothing wrong. But every time I get the blame.
But to be fair, it's not like I can even hear what the fuck is supposed to be going on in the courtroom past the soundtrack. All I can tell is Anthony is still high, yet somehow Pedro isn't, and they find out the judge's water is actually vodka, and then...
Oh, shit.
Hey, I'm down here.
they just move on.
Hey, listen, you can sleep in that bedroom right there, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's cool there.
They just move on? You mean to tell me they were arrested and tried for DUI, fucking possession, and probably a parking violation in there as well, and this wasn't important enough to fucking resolve before continuing the movie? Therefore, we forget all about everything that's happened thus far, except for it explaining how Anthony and Pedro know each other, and move on to the new story. They're trying to start a band, but Anthony doesn't like the direction it's going.
Hey, these uniforms are lame, man.
What you mean lame, sucker?
Hey, Pedro, man, where's the white dude you say was playing the drums?
Oh, that's him, man.
Oh, what, he doesn't look white enough for your taste? What's he need, a fucking Starbucks in one hand and an AR-15 in the other? Man, I could really go for an AR-15 right now. As they're having trouble agreeing on a band uniform, Pedro and Anthony head out to get some weed to clear their heads. Problem is they're having a lot of trouble finding any, so as the search continues, Pedro decides to go somewhere a lot more reliable, but home to a Vietnam vet who's not quite right in the head, and who has a birthmark that he hates when people stare at. Strawberry, played by Tom Skerritt.
What you looking at, man?
Oh, nothing.
Fuck the birthmark, that's Dallas from Alien! Before getting his job as captain of the Nostromo, seems he was a drug dealer. However, he's fresh out of weed, and he has to go to his supplier. I don't trust new faces, though, so Anthony has to stay behind and watch the house. This results in us getting to watch him play around with what he finds, such as arranging Ajax in lines like cocaine.
It's not really,
For some reason, they actually set that straw up to a tube connected to a vacuum to suck up the Ajax, instead of, I don't know, just having her snort something safer, like cocaine. Or LSD. The situation gets much worse in record time, though, as it seems that Strawberry's house is being watched and the police are preparing for a drug raid. Right when Pedro and Strawberry pull back around. Problem is, Strawberry's having a Vietnam flashback, so he just jumps out of the vehicle, leaving the movie, never to be seen again. This means Pedro has to make an emergency call to let Anthony know to get the fuck out of there. Of course, there's suddenly a huge party, and this is easier said than done.
Pedro, the place is full of drugs. Come on back, man.
This could be it, Harry.
Introducing our main officers for this movie, led by Sergeant Stadenko, played by the prolific Stacy Keach. In line with most narcs and drug-themed movies, the leader is serious enough to be a threat, but his subordinates are incompetent enough that he never poses that big of an obstacle for our protagonists. In that vein, Anthony accidentally escapes the drug raid, locking himself outside right before it happens, and we get to know how inept his team is, starting with Harry, played by Mills Watson.
It's turning blue.
Huh? It's high-grade stuff. Could be Peruvian flake.
Oh, great, now I'm getting flashbacks of that blue shit from Lucy. Does that count as a drug movie? I mean, all things considered. He's also got Clyde and Murphy at his disposal, played by Carl Johnson and Rick Beckner, respectively. But that doesn't stop Pedro from waltzing right in the middle of his raid, pretending to be a repo man in order to recover some of the drugs, as well as Anthony. Still no weed, though. Don't worry, turns out they had some close by since the start, as the band's manager, Curtis, played by Christopher Joy, hooks them up with the least potent shit on the planet.
You must get high on lawn clippings, Jack. 'Cause this ain't grass, man, I'm telling you that.
Though I'm not sure this shit ain't even giving me a buzz works as a legal defense. The police aren't here for a drug raid, though, as Pedro explains. This is immigration coming to scoop him up and deport him to Mexico. But it's cool, it's actually intentional, as there's a wedding going on and the groom's family realizes that INS is much cheaper than going Greyhound to fill out the guest list. Being legally allowed to remain in the States, of course, Cheech and Chong are scooped up and deported just the same. But shouldn't have an issue returning home. All they need is a car.
Hey, my Uncle Chewy's got a van. We gotta smuggle back across the border, man.
Hey, what are we smuggling?
Upholstery, man. She's got a upholstery shop in Beverly Hills, but it gets all the work done here, man, because it's cheaper.
Upholstery smuggling isn't called smuggling. It's referred to as an import. Except for the twist where the narcotics officers go over the magical marijuana properties for this film. Turns out science has gone too far and has managed to purify cannabis to such an extreme, even common things like televisions and shelving units can be made from pure super dense marijuana.
This spray, gentlemen, is called fiber weed, and it's pure marijuana.
So the truth is, they're not smuggling furniture and appliances, but marijuana that looks like furniture and appliances. And still works, like TVs work and the refrigerators work and everything. And this is a great breakthrough in manufacturing for green technology, but it's marijuana, so it must be stopped. Except that it's not actually what Pedro was supposed to be carrying. He was actually supposed to go to a real upholstery factory and pick up a real car, but due to a burrito stain on the address, winds up at the wrong place. Which just so happens to be the fake upholstery factory that's manufacturing goods out of pure weed. They even made the van itself out of marijuana, and not questioning Pedro and Anthony showing up and just saying that they're the drivers, hand them the keys and let them take to the road. Doesn't take long before they reach the border, so of course they have to get rid of the drugs they've got on hand. The drugs they know about, that is. Also, while they're supposedly driving a van and trying to smuggle upholstery, there's nothing in the back of that van. They completely forget all about the whole upholstery part of the smuggling of upholstery. They just have the van. Unless they're trying to say that the next breakthrough in drug smuggling is air weed. Of course, the narcs are here, ready and waiting to find the biggest drug bust in history. So they're checking each vehicle thoroughly.
You got any narcotics or marijuana in here?
Not anymore.
What? You guys better step out of that van.
But they're being led by Stadenko, so obviously it's not the two druggies in the weed van. It has to be the nuns who are so surprised to find a burning roach in their car. It's a big-ass roach, but still. Thus, Cheech and Chong passed the border check no problem, driving right past Stadenko during his TV interview, and even stopped there to take a leak.
Bitch, look at the... Some asshole pissed on my leg!
I'm still surprised that no one has just, smelled the grass on them. It does have quite a distinctive aroma. Hell, they didn't even realize the guys even had the drug car until the drug dog died from ODing on just the smell. Which, doesn't make a... you know what, fuck it. The point is that they continue their journey to somewhere and run into a couple more characters, two hitchhikers. Jade, played by Zane Busby, and Debbie, played by Ann Wharton.
How far are you going, man?
All the way.
Hey, we're going there ourselves. Come on over.
And the whole thing about them delivering the van somewhere is pretty much forgotten. We never hear them talk about delivering the contents, which don't exist anymore. And the whole thing about any kind of destination related to a delivery of any sort is just never brought up again. Instead, we just see Pedro and Debbie get to know each other a little better, while Jade and Anthony talk about scoring some more drugs before we finally get a destination for this little adventure.
Hey, man, you know where these chicks are going? They're going to the Roxy, man. They're having a battle of the bands there, man. Debbie was telling me all about it. You know, they're going to have all these bands, man, and the winner gets a record contract.
Yeah, the music thing that they brought up once before a while ago, but unlike most points brought up in this movie, it actually was relevant to the plot.
You know, we could get our band in it, man. We could enter, we could win it, man. It's $100 too.
How much are we gonna get paid for the smuggling job? And why should I be excited about you getting $100? What, do you need it? I mean, aside from the fact that it's 1978 and it's worth quite a bit more. But considering they've completely forgotten about all that other shit they were doing, at least a Battle of the Bands is something to aspire towards. Still, they want some drugs, so Jade brings them by the police station. It's okay, Officer Whitey here, played by Louisa Moitz, is a friend of Jade's, and often keeps her supplied with the drugs that come into the evidence lockers. However, strangely enough, the super rare weed rears its ugly head again, and even she can't find any in the station. Don't worry, though. She's heard of a big bust of marijuana that the top narcotics officers are working on right now. First things first, though, Pedro has to use the bathroom.
Oh, hey, man, thanks an awful lot, man.
Hey! Oh, come on, look at... I'm sorry. Hey!
It's quite an interesting situation to find yourself in. Twice. Is there some kind of achievement they unlock for having all the party members piss on the cops? More importantly, placing an internal combustion engine inside of a vehicle made of pure marijuana might not have been the best engineering, as the bumper has started to smolder. You'd think this would make it harder for them to avoid the police, but fortunately, this stuff's so potent, the patrol officer forgets why he even pulled them over and just wants their hot dog. Therefore, they make it to the Battle of the Bands without much difficulty. Except, of course, they're too fucked up to perform.
Hey, come on, man, we're on it. Did you give him some pills?
Yeah, I gave him some pills, but I gave him ups. I think I fucked up. Wait a second.
Is it just me, or do people mix up narcotics and drug movies with the same consistency as cars fail to start in horror movies? So not only have they had all of 20 minutes to prepare for a live show, but Anthony's not able to play like this. To make matters worse, Stadenko and company have tracked the Rauschenwagen down to the Battle of the Bands and planned their attack. An attack that involves them kidnapping some Hare Krishnas and stealing their clothes.
Wait. Can we see some tickets, guys?
We do not need tickets. We are brothers of the faith, Wasabi.
We gotta need tickets to walk with love in the world.
Because evidently that was easier than just paying the cover charge?
Hi! We are not brothers of the faith. We are police officers.
Sorry, man.
Jeez, if you're gonna go through so much trouble to try and slip in, don't blow your own cover that damn quick! Not like they're gonna get anywhere anyway, considering the weed van is being towed. Because it's being towed. And a quick rupture to the fuel line later lets us all know where this is going. While Stadenko and company try desperately to get that situation under control, Cheech and Chong take to the stage to perform. Yeah, Anthony's still not all there, but that doesn't mean they can't wow a room full of teenagers. I mean, it helps to be conscious, but is it really necessary? However, as we could all see coming, the gasoline near the van is accidentally lit, setting far more of the vehicle ablaze, which nobody seems to notice. They just all get the munchies, and the massive plume of smoke envelops the Roxy, pouring into the building and both casting a mass stone spell on the patrons and somehow revitalizing Anthony, allowing the band to play the ever kick-ass Earache My Eye. Which, if it sounds familiar to you, is probably because it's been covered and sampled countless times. Its first appearance was in 1974 on Cheech and Chong's wedding album. Considering the rest of the performances were covered only minorly in this movie, and the audience is high as fuck for this one, it should come as no surprise that Pedro and Anthony win the Battle of the Bands hands down, while Stadenko and the narcs succumb to the munchies. With that done, the movie just kinda ends. Yeah, they're back home with the car, but the girls disappeared. No clue what the hell happened to them. And the views on the future they could have if they managed to become a big-name band. First things first, though, gotta keep your balls from burning off. Which feels, satisfying enough, I guess. I mean, the movie really didn't have much of a build-up for things, so I wasn't expecting that big of a climax out of it, so there's that. But, anyway, that was Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, and, it's kinda like the movie version of ADHD. While certainly entertaining with well-written jokes and fun characters to follow during its runtime, the main problem this film suffers from is the plot has a tendency to meander in new fluffy directions while abandoning things you'd think would at least be somewhat important to tie up. A lot of times with drug-themed movies, you get the question of if it's something you'll like better when high. I really don't think that's a great basis to go off of, because I can't think of many things which would be worse while high. Except maybe Alien on LSD. But the point is, I'm strict about judging movies based on their sober merits, and even if someone stoned off their ass won't mind the film for getting the upholstery part of the upholstery smuggling, I'm left wondering if there's a longer cut that explains a lot of these gaps. Just, geez. That part seems mild compared to the fact that we see the duo get dragged into court for some pretty major charges, then poof, They're home and perfectly fine, with no explanation. That's the first part that's really jarring, and it also means outside of enjoying the jokes, there wasn't really any point to the first act of the movie. It didn't build on anything, and by the end it didn't matter in the slightest. Still, while the story goes off on its own at times, and things happen with reasons plucked from the air, and reason is discarded at a whim, the comedy at work here does its job. Obviously, Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong play well off each other, and Stadenko was a fun cartoon-style villain to follow for the running time. Overall, I'd say Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke is a surprisingly good watch, considering how the plot looks when you take a step back and think about it, coming in at 3 super doggy doo-doo-doobies out of 5. And there's the dislike. Thank you all for watching. I've been Decker Shado, and remember, support marijuana research. Just imagine how much stronger an iPhone screen made out of fiber weed would be.
He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. The internet personality with the best hair. He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. The internet personality with the best hair.
Hard Hat, codenamed Hard Hat. Do you read Radio Dispatch?
Hey, got something for you, lard ass.
Hard hat!